Hey everyone, Kevin here. In this video, I'm going to explain why Donald Trump, Republicans, and obviously Democrats support additional stimulus checks, which when we have all three of those stars aligning, we tend to get more stimulus checks. Let me explain exactly how I came to this conclusion, and I'll be referencing things from Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, a Republican, obviously Mitch is a Republican, Donald Trump, Larry Kudlow, and Nancy Pelosi. So in other words, we're gonna be getting information from a bunch of different sources here and putting all of the dots together into a puzzle of additional stimulus checks. Let's get started by giving you kind of a quick little recap as to what's already going on and what's sort of being perpetuated in the media. Right now, we hear that Republicans want to put a pause on spending, and that makes us sad because it sounds like, well, there might not be more stimulus. We hear that the White House is suggesting or potentially being misquoted to say that negotiations are done. We already addressed that in yesterday's video. And we hear a lot of attention around, well, all the Democrats are submitting new proposals, $2,000 a month, the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act, how about $2,000 a month retroactively, and are all these things just a pipe dream? Well, let's start by explaining this properly. First things first. As much as Congress seems inefficient, it's very easy for anybody to put together a 2 to 7 page proposal and then have something to rally behind, a political rallying cry. But what's not a political rallying cry is the actual CARES Act 2 bill that is being introduced on Monday or Tuesday. All of the little bills that keep getting more and more co-sponsors, but those don't necessarily matter so much, like the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act or the Emergency Money for the People's Act, which both got more co-sponsors yesterday. All of those smaller proposals are the rallying cries. But the CARES Act 2 is gonna be the big Goliath that comes in and absorbs and incorporates a lot of these smaller proposals. And that is expected to be an over 800-page, potentially as large as $3 trillion stimulus package. Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve, the dude with the money printer, has already told Congress, go big. In other words, interest rates are low, please spend. This is probably your last shot before the election to pass some real stimulus. We already know that state and local governments need funding. We know that heroes and first responders and essential workers need additional funding. We know it's not fair for states to have lost revenues related to the coronavirus and the pandemic. And so we know that Congress is going to come through on these things. But what about stimulus checks? That's what we care about. And this is where, when we connect these dots, which I'm about to lay out for you, we can see a very clear picture. Let's start with dot number one. Dot number one is Nancy Pelosi's interview that was not highly publicized, probably because it was on C-SPAN, and only people like me actually sit here watching C-SPAN. It's very, very boring, okay? You need lots of extra coffee, which if you're like me and you drink a lot of coffee, you should probably sign up for life insurance. I got a link down below for you. You could sign up for life insurance before this video's over. All right. Nancy Pelosi, in this interview, when asked what CARES Act 2, which is being proposed on Monday or Tuesday, would include, she said the following. Obviously, the things we know: testing, tracing, treatment, funding for heroes, state and local governments. We got it. We mentioned that. But this was the big quote here. This was very important. Remember, these 800-page mega bills, which I'm about to reference here in this quote, these big bills, nobody wants to put together an 800-page bill just to throw it away. The House doesn't put together a mega CARES Act 2 bill just for Republicans to go, never mind. That would be a massive waste of time. Don't kid yourself. These bills are pre-negotiated heavily. The little 1 to 7 page jokey bills, the little mini micro bills, those aren't pre-negotiated. Yeah, those can be wish lists, right? But the mega bills that Nancy Pelosi is about to introduce, those are very well pre-negotiated. So when Nancy Pelosi alludes to her negotiations and tells us about problems she's having with Republicans, it becomes very clear where the debate is and where it is not. Listen to this quote, and then we'll talk about Republicans directly. In response to what's in the CARES Act package, she said this quote, and it's gonna sound like I'm misquoting it, but I'm gonna read it word for word. We need, quote, money in the pockets of the American people, whether it's unemployment, direct payments, PPP, and other initiatives. Did I say direct payments? Did I say it twice? That's very important, end quote. That right there, That was not me stumbling on the words direct. She said the word direct 4 times, followed by, that's very important. Okay, fine. But is that just a Democratic dream? Is that just a hope? Well, remember, Nancy Pelosi is the one who's negotiating directly with leaders on the Republican side like Mitch McConnell. And now she talks about problems with Republicans. She specifically says, we've built on other bills we've passed, which have all had bipartisan support. State and local funding, testing, direct payments. So she says, look, we're just building on what we've already had support on. But we are running into difficulties on something. And this was her quote regarding difficulties. I would hope that we could overcome some difficulties we have. Republicans do not seem interested in doing food stamps, SNAP. I hope we could overcome. And we've tried to get that passed, so on and so forth. And then it says, so I'm optimistic. We'll move forward in a big way. Notice she's outlined what's going to be in this mega bill. Said direct payments 4 times, and that's very important. And then when it came to talking about problems with negotiations she's having with Republicans, she says food stamps. No, not direct payments. Food stamps is where she's having issues, which they've had issues in the past. And there's no mention here of any issues regarding getting additional stimulus checks. Now, I'd be crazy to only reference Nancy Pelosi, and I know that. So now let's talk about Republicans. And how can we tell that Republicans and Trump support CARES Act #2 with direct payments to us? Well, let's analyze what Larry Kudlow said when it came to talking about the next stimulus package. In an interview yesterday on Fox Business, Larry Kudlow said that there will be more stimulus, and it will either be before the election or it will be after the election. And if it's after the election, it's going to be a big stimulus package. Paraphrasing here, but if there's a big stimulus package after the next election in November, it's going to be big. In other words, Larry Kudlow, the economic advisor for the White House, just signaled that after the election, there'll be big stimulus coming from Republicans. Okay, well, in order for voters to believe that Republicans are pro additional stimulus once they get reelected, then they also have to be willing to support individuals with direct payments and stimulus before the election. Otherwise, it would be moronic, right? It wouldn't make sense. And I'm not calling anybody a moron. I'm not taking sides here. I'm saying it wouldn't make sense to say, no. We are not giving out more stimulus checks, but we will after the election. We'll consider that. That wouldn't align, right? But that's not all we have, okay? So we have that as circumstantial. Let's now put something else out. Let's go to Trump. Trump said in his meeting with Republicans yesterday, which I listened to all of it, it was probably a solid hour and a half of Republican senators and representatives just praising Donald Trump and how great he is, which makes sense because they're trying to, look up, he's their party leader, okay? I get it. Now, there was a specific point where Donald Trump leans over to Kevin McCarthy, who was sitting right next to him. And Kevin McCarthy is one of the big head honchos for the Republicans in the House, which is where CARES Act 2 is being introduced Monday or Tuesday. And Donald Trump leans over and says, Kevin McCarthy, we're going to get you to be the Speaker of the House. You're going to take Nancy Pelosi's seat in this next election. And this is very interesting because what would that mean? Well, Republicans are in the White House. If Trump gets reelected, then we have another Republican again. Well, we have Trump. We continue to have Republicans in the White House. Then we have Republicans in the Senate. And if Kevin McCarthy becomes the Speaker of the House, that means Republicans control the House, which Donald Trump said they're close to. And what does that mean? It basically means unchecked power with the exception of the Supreme Court, because they control 2 very important branches of government. Congress, all houses, both houses, and the presidency. What happened when Obama controlled the presidency and the House between 2008 and 2010. Obamacare was passed, which had 0 Republican support. Still to this day, Obamacare is totally hated. Now, yes, Trump did have complete control at the beginning of his election, but getting it again, coming off the heels of this catastrophe, having complete control in the House and the Senate and the presidency, and with rates at 0, could be the perfect opportunity to push through all of the Republican initiatives without any checks by Democrats. infrastructure spending, whatever it is, the new healthcare that Trump wants to put in, whatever Republicans want to do, they could do it unchecked if they win all three branches. But they can't reasonably expect to win all three branches without the support of the people. And when, according to a money poll, 60% of Americans needed the stimulus check they got, but said it was not enough money, that is, they needed more stimulus checks, then we know that support for more stimulus checks is both a Democrat value and a Republican value. So all of a sudden, when we take a step back and look at all of the factors we have, we know Nancy Pelosi is not going to put an 800-page bill together without support from Republicans because it would be a massive waste of time. And the fact that if Republicans were clearly against additional stimulus checks, Democrats would take the opportunity to slam Republicans saying, hey, they're saying no more checks. They're not really doing that. In fact, the only thing Democrats are complaining about is it's hard getting extra funding for the SNAP program. And we also know that Trump is focused on controlling all three branches in this next election. And Larry Kudlow tells us that they want more stimulus, and that's going to be a key part of their election campaign. Then we can make the reasonable conclusion here that it's nearly impossible for Republicans to be anti-additional stimulus checks. In other words, it makes sense that they have to support additional stimulus checks. But not only that, we know there's a lot of negative media right now that Republicans do not support additional stimulus checks because they're saying things like, well, we're gonna pause, or negotiations are stalled or paused right now. Larry Kudlow said that yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, quoted him ad nauseum. But I broke that completely apart in yesterday's video because the Wall Street Journal misquoted him. And we also do know that Mitch McConnell and other Republicans in the Senate are saying, we just need to wait and see how the existing spending is going. Notice they're not saying they're anti-additional checks. Some very Republican senators are saying that, but most of them are saying, let's just wait and see. Well, what's happening during the wait and see? The House is drafting the 800-page bill. I don't know if it's going to be exactly 800 pages, but we do have indications that it's going to be over or potentially larger than the last stimulus package for $2.2 trillion. In fact, going back to the C-SPAN interview, the interviewer asked Nancy Pelosi, well, how big is the next stimulus package going to be? Is it going to be $1 trillion? Is it going to be $2 trillion? And Nancy Pelosi says, you're getting warmer, and kind of smiles. In other words, knowing that the Federal Reserve says go big, and as he's increasing his number, he's getting warmer. This is going to be a Goliath of a bill. And yeah, there are going to be negotiations, and yeah, there are going to be debates, but I can't reasonably see a way for Republicans to be staunchly against additional checks, especially when all of these factors line up. They want control. Here's an easy way to increase their chances of getting it. And this is why this video is called Trump and the Republicans Support Additional Stimulus Checks. And if you like the way I break things down, make sure you join me in my program's link below. There's a coupon code that you can use. Keep in mind the opportunity for you to also get 2 free stocks with the stock trading platform Webull supposedly ends in 2 days. I got another email this morning and she's like, Kevin, we're reducing it from 2 free stocks to 1 free stock on the 12th. Who knows if it's true? That's what she says. She's the marketing director at Webull, so get your Webull free stocks, 2 free stocks if you deposit $100. Of course, get your quote for life insurance. In fact, if you got it when I said it the first time, you probably already have life insurance, so congratulations. Good for you. And so there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. If you appreciate these insights, make sure to also hit subscribe, and I'll keep you provided with many more updates. Thank you so much. Bye.